Begin the current Daf and set this Eruvin Daf Ayin Tes. So begin on the bottom of Ayin Tes on the base, 3 lines up at the bottom of the Yomid, where we continue to explain the halacha of our previous Mishnah, which was discussing this idea of this parak of chaloim, which is when you have a separation between two different courtyards and you have an opening one with the other. When can you do two different areas, and when can you do either one of them? Ashish corresponds to Mekazech and Cheskel to any time Daf Chaim. Krishna was joining us for today's Daf. Some of the things we're discussing in today's Daf are rocks considered permanently abandoned, which is called, even when it's stama, even when the owner does not say so, but when you fill up, it's going to be considered as if it's seisim, as if it's filling it up, and thus making the two areas connected. Additionally, the qualifications for a 4 tefach board to serve as a bridge that connects two ledges, which was the case of the Mishnah of Shtei Gezus Terois, and you have two porches, and you have a Neser, Rachav Arba, connecting the two porches. We're going to discuss a case regarding a haystack that divides two chatzeros. We have a few different types of those cases. And some of the terms and concepts we can have about the procedure for Shetufim Avoyis. That's the last idea we're going to discuss in the Mishnah Amid Beis, how to go ahead and join the different chatzeros in the same oven. And some of the key terms and concepts are Machitza Shemegis L'Tikra is when you have a wall that just, it doesn't make it all the way up to the ceiling. The Gemara is going to try to bring a raya from one of the brises that our Gemara brings. And Malay Lugmav is a cheekful, which is when someone makes kiddush, has to drink a cheekful. So begin the current Daf. 3 lines up at the bottom of the Yomid, Ein Chesed base. We said in the Mishnah, we were talking about a ditch that's between two different courtyards, and it's 10 tefachim deep, 4 tefachim wide, thus making it a bona fide mechitza between the two courtyards, because mechitza doesn't have to be only in height, it could also be in depth. So then the halacha was you have to make 2 separate Eruvin, you can't make one. And that's even if it's filled up with straw or stubble. Then the Mishnah said, which our Gemara continues, if it's mulei offer, if it's filled up with earth or pebbles, then it's going to be considered as if it's closing it up, it's stuffed it up, like it's now ground. And now you can only make one Eruv together, you can't make 2 separate Eruv. They become, the two fields now become one chutzner requiring one Eruv. That was the halacha in the Mishnah. So now that's the Gemara, Vafil b'stama, is that even if it's unspecified, meaning we don't know if he's going to take away the pebbles or the earth at a future time or not, that's what it sounds like from the Mishnah. It doesn't say. It sounds like even if it's unspecified, it doesn't specify. On that is the Gemara Batznam, but it seems to be contradictory from Mishnah Mesechtes Alais. Mishnah Mesechtes Alais is talking about a different halacha, but it's comparable in regards to, do we consider this as closed up automatically or not? The Mishnah says, bias. If you have a house that has what's called tumas mess, a dead person, a corpse inside a house, which contaminates in the whole oil. Shemilo and Tevanate Saroris. Now, if you filled up the whole house with straw or pebbles, and that's the case we're discussing, earth and pebbles are the same type of characteristic, and actually Rashi brings earth, and there's a Giris and Rabin and Taisis regarding that, it's from a Mishnah. Be that as it may, ubitloi, and if you're nullifying it, meaning you're mavatal it, you're saying that you want it to stay there, then batal, it's going to be batal. Now, what's the significance of earth and pebbles in a house being mavatal it, where there's a dead person? So Rashi explains, he fills in the blanks, is that there's a halacha called tumah ritzutza. Tumah ritzutza is, if you have tumah that's, let's say, in a coffin or some in a house or whatever, and it's totally stuffed up, there's no ear space over there, then it's not considered as an oil for itself. Then halachically what happens is now the tumah shoots up and shoots down, and whoever's now over the roof of that area is going to become tameh. So the halacha is whenever you don't have an oil of a tefach, an ear space of a tefach, that's if you have an oil of a tefach, then it's only going to be contained in that area. But if it's ritzutza, which means like crouching, it's like stuffed in, there's no room, then that's the halacha of the laws of tumah. It's by kasva oilad, the rakia goes up to the sky. The Gemara says the brachas, perak b'shanesi. But one thing is that you see, as says the Gemara, bitloy. Sounds like the earth, the pebbles, it's only going to be mevatla, then yes, it's going to be considered as batal, and that it's remaining over here. But as you continue to Ayin Testament Aleph, loy bit loy, if you're not going to be mavatl, if you're not going to say, oh, I wanted to stay over here, then it's not going to be batal, and the tumah is not going to go shoot up because it does have an oil. Meaning, you have a dead person over here, and there's earth all on top of it. That earth, is that considered closed space or open space? It sounds like in the Mishnah Sect there's always that it's considered open space. There's an oil over here, so therefore it's going to be contained in this house. It's not going to shoot up. Only if it's mavatla says I want to keep it over here, then it's considered as closed. That contradicts the halacha of our Mishnah. Our Mishnah seems to indicate when you have the ditch, when it's filled with pebbles and earth, it's automatically considered as closed up. You don't have to be mavatla, even stama. Yet the Mishnah said this all sounds like no. A house that's filled with straw or rocks is only considered to be filled only if you're mavatla. So is it even stama, or is it only if you're mevatla? That's the contradiction that the Gemara has. And the Gemara has three different approaches. Amr Rav Huna says, Man Tana Alis, who the Tana of this Mishnah Mesechtes Alis, that's different than our Mishnah, which again, that Mishnah says you have to mevatla, our Mishnah says even stama. It's Rabbi Yisi, it's called like Rabbi Yisi, which place has a difficulty, and Rashi even says it's only because Rabbi Yisi speaks about this halacha, as the Gemara is going to say, that's why we picked him, but actually, as the Gemara is going to say, actually says the exact opposite. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yisi, if the Tana Mishnah says Rabbi Yisi, we actually learned he says the exact opposite. The Tana, when the Bryce Rabbi Yisi, I mean, he says that if you fill up teven with straw, the ein asur lefanoisei, and we know that this person does not need this straw, which means to say he didn't explicitly do mevatlet. We just know he's not going to end up taking it away from where he stuffed it. So then the straw is hareu kastam offer. The straw is like regular earth. So this is a little bit confusing. There's a few different categories. Straw is there's earth and straw, and they're considered different. But Rabbi Yisi is saying that earth that we don't know if he's going to end up clearing it out or not, the halacha is that that's not going to be considered as batal. You have to go ahead. It's only like regular earth will batal, and that you went and batal, and that it's considered that we consider it as it is batal. Harei kastam offer batal. Regular earth is considered automatically batal. And when he's saying when you have straw and that you don't plan on clearing it away, it's going to be like stam offer and it's batal. So we see that Rabbi Yisi holds that regular earth is automatically batal. Regular straw that we don't know if he's going to take it away is actually not going to be batal. It's only if it's ein asur lefanoisei. We know he doesn't plan on taking it away. Then it's like stam offer. Offer v'asur lefanoisei. If you have earth and you plan on clearing it away, meaning we know he wants to take it away, it's not stam. We know he wants to clear it away. Harei kastam teven. Now that's like regular straw, which we don't know if he's going to clear it away or not. V'loi batal, and that it's not going to be batal because we assume by straw that it's not going to be batal. Because straw is something you end up clearing it away. Earth is something. Earth and pebbles you would keep. You keep it there in the ground. That's part of what the ground is. Straw you don't usually keep over there. But be that as it may, what the Gemara is saying is that you can't say the Tana and Mesechtes Alis is Rabbi Yisi because he says stam offer is batal. So you're trying to answer the question, and you're saying that our Mishnah is a contradiction with the Mishnah Mesechtes Alis. Say, okay, fine. That Mishnah is like Rabbi Yisi, that Mishnah is not like Rabbi Yisi. But if anything, is like our Mishnah. He says that when he's comparing what teven ve'ein asur lefanoisei, when you straw that you don't plan on clearing away, that's like stam offer, and it's mevatla. You see stam offer, regular earth is nullified. You don't have to actually go ahead and be mevatla. So Elamar Asi rather he says you're right. Mantana Eruvin. Who's the Mishnah Mesechtes Eruvin? Our Mishnah is Rabbi Yisi, like we said, he's not like the Mantana Mesechtes Alis. So yeah, it is quote unquote a contradiction. It's not a contradiction. It's machlekes. The Tana Mesechtes Alis holds that stam offer you have to be mevatla, and our Mishnah, which is like Rabbi Yisi, holds that stam offer you don't have to be mevatla. It's automatically considered batal to the ground. Now, another approach, says the Gemara, he says, Tuma Ashabas Karamis, you're asking a contradiction from regarding the laws of when you have regular earth, is it automatically considered as it's batal, as it's like staying over here forever, or not? You're asking for a Mishnah Mesechtes Alis which talks about the laws of Tuma, which are regarding a dead person conveying Tuma, to here regarding the laws of Shabbos, which is regarding the laws of a mechitza, separating two different courtyards with a ditch between them. How could you ask Tuma on Shabbos? Hanach Isra Shabbos, leave alone the Isra of Shabbos, like our Mishnah, that since the earth is not going to be taken on Shabbos, so that's why Stama we could say it's going to be batal, because as the Gemara says, Dafil Arniki, even a purse full with money, not mevatel inish. A person also is mevatel in a certain place because it's muktzah on Shabbos. In contrast to straw and stubble, that would be taken even on Shabbos because that could be used for animal food. That's why we said in the Mishnah, teven is different, straw is different than earth. But regular earth, of course, can be batal because Shabbos things are people. They're not going to even a wallet you can move because you can't move it. Toma people are not likely to abandon things, and therefore the earth, regarding the laws of Toma, is not batal automatically. You have to move it. But regarding Shabbos, yeah, you can move it regarding between the two courtyards because you can't move it on Shabbos because of Toma, because of muktzah. A third approach of Hashem, he says a similar but different. He says bayis acharetz karamas. You're asking from a house on a ditch. The Mishnah Mesechtes Alis is talking about when the house is filled with earth. Our Mishnah is talking about when the ditch is filled with earth. Bishlam acharetz, we understand the ditch. Limitami kain. What's a ditch meant for? To fill up with earth. Therefore, when you put earth inside the ditch, you be mevatlet automatically, even without specifying, even according to Rabbanan. But elabayis, but a house, limitami kain. You think a house is meant to be filled up with earth? No, it's not meant to be full of earth. And if you put earth in a house, it's not stomach bottle unless you're actually b'mavatla, and therefore it's not typical. So there's three different approaches to explain the contradiction between the Mishnah that's also in our Mishnah. Either our Mishnah is like Rabbi Yisi and that Mishnah is like a different Tana, Rabbi Yisi holds stomach bottle, or because our Mishnah is talking about Shabbos and they're talking about Tumah, or because our Mishnah is talking about a ditch and that Mishnah is talking about a house. And therefore that's the differences in regards to the laws of if earth is going to be stomach bottle. We said in the Mishnah, Nasan Lav Neser Shaleichem Dalet. We talked about a case if you have this ditch separating the two different courtyards, and we said if you put a board, Nasan Lav Neser, you put a board Shaleichem Dalet, which has a width of 4 tefachim, that's going to connect. It's like a bridge connecting the two different courtyards. And that's what the Mishnah said. Ma'arben Shnayim, they can make two separate Eruvin if they want to, because they're still separate between the dishes. But from Ma'arben Echad, if they want to, they can make one Erev together. On that, Ravi says, Lo Yishanu, we didn't learn that the board has to be a width of 4 tefachim. Ela Shanasan, only if he placed the length of the board l'rachbei to the width of the ditch, meaning from one side to the other side, like a bridge. However, but if he put the board to the length, meaning he put it to the length of the ditch, a board that's 4 tefachim long, on top of, let's say, pegs by the end, and regular, he closes up part of the width of the ditch because he's putting it to the side of it, and he's making it less than 4 tefachim, then nafel kol shenami. Then even if it's a very narrow board, not 4 tefachim wide, even if it's only like a finger breadth, the halach is going to be shahari mita, because he's minimizing it from the width of the ditch, midal, from being 4 tefachim in the opening of being a Pesach. Our Mishnah was talking about a rachav dalid because you're going and the length. If you're going, you have to have that it's wide enough for a person to walk across like a bridge. So that has to have a rachav of dalid. But if you're going along the length of the ditch, then it could be as narrow as you want it to be, as long as it has a length of 4 tefachim, so that it's minimizing the area of the opening from one to the other one. Then it doesn't have to be in a width of 4 tefachim. So to the Mishnah continue, when you have two porches, zu keneged zu, one next to the other, the way Rashi explains it. You have two, let's say a townhouse, and it's connected one to the other, and you have the porches that are sticking out. So that's what we said, that the way Rashi learns that you have to have a board that's 4 tefachim connecting them. So Amar Rabbi says, had the Armadista, he said zu keneged zu. When you have one on the side of the other one, then yes, it's going to work, but zu shaloi keneged zu. But the inference is that if one's not opposite the other one, which as Rashi explains, let's say one porch is sticking out more to Rosh Hashanah more than the other porch, then actually it's not going to be sufficient with a board that's 4 tefachim to connect the two porches. And also bezula mal mezunami. Also, it's also not going to work if one's a little bit higher than the other one. It has to be literally side by side, exactly in regards to height and regard to length. So in that halacha, that we just made an inference in that halacha too, Rabbi says, we didn't say this, only if there's a gap between the two porches of 3 tefachim. And there's discussion in the Rabbi Shloimy exactly where is this gap. But if you don't have, if they're not 3 tefachim far one from the other, then it's actually going to work even if it's one's higher or one is further out than the other one. It's going to be what's called a bent porch. It's to say, even if it's shleikin neged, but since they're so close with Lavid, within 3 tefachim, we'll consider it even if it like bends, we'll make it like an L shape, we'll make it like a going up shape, whatever it is, it's going to be considered as one because of the fact that they're right near each other. Continue now, the next Mishnah, continue on this theme of this whole parak regarding the area between 2 courtyards, if they're considered 1 courtyard, 2 courtyards, or somewhere in the middle, like a opening. Says the Mishnah Masvein, if there is a pile of straw, Shabein Shtei Chatzeres, that's between 2 different courtyards, and it separates the whole width of the courtyards, as we have here in this picture. Gevaya Sar Tvachim, and the pile is 10 Tvachim high, then the halacha is Ma'arben Shnayim. You could only make 2 separate Eruvin. You can't make 1 joint there, again, because they're separated by this mechitza of the pile of straw. Moreover, says the Mishnah, Elu Machilin, these people can feed from the straw for their animals, Mikan from this side, and these people can feed their animals from the other side, and that we're not concerned that maybe you're going to diminish the pile of straw from 10 tefachim, and then it's going to be one area, and then they're going to make a forbidden one on the other, because they didn't join the Erev together, and they're not going to realize it, and they're going to carry in the chutzner. On that is what the Mishnah is saying, that we're not concerned with that, because even if it would minimize, let's say the animals would eat from the straw on Shabbos, if it's not going to make it less than an area of 10 amas more on the length, it wouldn't be a problem, because up until 10 amas, it's still considered as a Pesach, as an opening. And an opening is okay, you can still be a separate area than the other courtyard. And the animal's not going to eat so much on Shabbos to eat so much to minimize the height of 10 tefachim, a longer length of 10 amas. So because of that, they could have their animals eat on Shabbos. But if, let's say, Nismai Hatav, let's say the straw was minimized along the whole courtyard, or at least more than 10 amas, me'asar tefachim, from a height of 10 tefachim, from Erev Shabbos, then ma'arvin echad. Then they can only make one Erev together, if, let's say, it was minimized during the weekday. They ma'arvin shnayim, and they cannot make two separate Eruvin, again, because they're considered connected by the fact that this wall is no more here, because it was minimized from before Shabbos. Now, the Gemara said, the Mishnah had said that they could have their animals eat from either side of this pile of straw. And because they're separate, they're considered separate chatzeres. So Amar Avuni says, but as long as the owners don't give with their hands, into their bucket, and that they eat it that way. Now the reason for that is because there are actually two different interpretations in Rashi why this is a problem, that the owners shouldn't do it by hand to give their animals. Either because the owner is going to take too much, and he's going to diminish it from a height of 10 tefachim, and then they're going to be carrying the chassid that's forbidden. The Mishnah that said machilin meant that the animal could come and eat. They were not concerned that it's going to diminish it so much, because the animal eats very slow at a time. The owner is going to be taking down from the pile of straw, then we're concerned that he might make it less than 10 tefachim. Or another interpretation is that actually he's not allowed to put it into his bucket because it's muktzah, because it functions as a machitza, as a partition. So because it's functioning as a partition, you can't take that away from that status that it had, and it would have therefore halacha as muktzah. One thing says the Gemara, wait a second. Rav Huna is saying that what you cannot do is you cannot take it by hand. You have to let the animals eat by itself. But it sounds like, says the Gemara, but to have the animal stand on the straw so that it should eat, that's shari, that's permitted, and then we're not concerned that if you make the animal stand right there, that you're going to pick it up with your hands and feed it to him directly. So obviously we see that the Issa Drabanan of feeding it by hands, again, whichever interpretation Rashi it is very severe, and we're not concerned that you're going to be over on feeding it by hand. You could still put the animal right there and have it eat. We're not concerned you're going to come take it by hand. However, on that is the Gemara, but V'amar Rav Huna himself, who just said the halacha, he says, Amar Rav Chanina, said the following halacha, says, Maimer Odmes Behentar Gabe Asav, a person can have his animal stand on top of grass that's connected to the ground to eat, Bish Shabbos on Shabbos, and we're not concerned that you might come to tear out with your own hands to feed the animal, because the Issa of Shabbos, of Toilish, of Kaitzer is very severe, and you're not going to come to tear it out by yourself. But, the Ein Maimun Odemes Behenta Gabe Muktzah B'Shabbos. You can't make your animal stand over something Muktzah on Shabbos to eat, because the Issa Muktzah is a lesser type of an Issa, it's only Issa Drabanan. And we're concerned that if you make your animal stand right there, you yourself might come to feed it with your own hands. So therefore the Gemara is asking here also, since we're saying this halacha of feeding the animal is a Issa Drabanan, we should be concerned, we shouldn't even let you have your animal stand over there, because by pushing him over there, you might come to go ahead and feed it by yourself from the wall of the straw, and that's rabbinically forbidden. And we said that's more kal, that's more lenient, you might come to do it yourself. Well, no, it's not so much gezerah, it's really part of that gezerah, like we see over here, that we're concerned that if you do this, you're going to come to do this Issa Drabanan. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. But says the Gemara, no. The Mishnah that permits anything less than using your hands is not talking about that it would let, as it was inferred from Rav Huna's teaching, that to have you make the animal stand right there in front of you and eat the straw. Rather, we're talking about the koim lo ba'apa. Actually, all you're doing is that you stand in the way of the animal, that it can't go anywhere else. V'azla v'achla. And then the animal goes and it eats the straw. So, in other words, so much Rabbanan wouldn't be geyser. They are concerned that if the animal's right here and the straw is right here, and you're making it eat right here, then we're concerned you might come to take it by hand. But if you're standing like at the end of an alleyway, and there's no place for it to go but to go to the straw, then we're not concerned that if you stand in its way and it goes by itself, that you might could go to take it by hand. That's the case that's being permitted in the halacha of the Mishnah. But then the Gemara asks another question. Is that really so that he can't put into his bucket the straw, and he has to only let the animal eat by itself. But V'tanya, in the Bryce, it says, if you have a house between two different courtyards, and you have two houses from the two courtyards that are open up into this house, like this picture has over here. So you have two courtyards, and you have in this courtyard of a house, and then you have a middle house. You have two houses opening up into this open middle house. Umilahu tevin. And then you went and you filled up the middle house with straw. So Allah is ma'arvin shnayim ve'ema arvin echad. So the two different courtyards have to make two separate Eruvin, and you can't make one Eruvin, obviously, because this middle house has this big mechitza of straw separating the two different courtyards. And also, and this is what we're going to relate back to our halacha, this guy could put into his bucket and give to eat his animals. This person could take from this pile of straw into his bucket and give his animals to eat. But let's say the straw is less than 10 tefachim. Then they're both forbidden, because now they're joined together now, and they never made an Eruv, because now the pile of straw is less than 10 tefachim. So says the basic Kitziru Eisa. So what should he do? In other words, at least that one of them should be permitted to go ahead and carry. What could they do? So Noilas Besa, what you do is, one of the people who has his house open up into that house, he locks his door from his house, and he gives up his rights in this middle house. Which the Gemara Amid Bey is going to ask, why do you need to do both? Why do you need to lock your house and be mevatla your shus? But be it as it may, then the halach is going to be hu'as. So he's forbidden now to carry out from his house, from that house to his chatzar, because he was mevatla his rights in this house. And the whole house is going to be for the other chatzar. So b'chavei mutter, so the other one now could go ahead and use that middle house. And so he could use that straw that's over there. And so too you say regarding a pit that's very wide that they put straw in, should be based tchumei Shabbos, that's between two different tchumen of Shabbos. In other words, if let's say this pit of straw is between, let's say half of the pit is within the tchum of one city, and half of the pit is within the tchum of another city, so each town could come on Yom Tov and use the straw that's within their part of the tchum. And so to over here, we're not concerned that they might come to take from the tchum of the other one. That's what we're saying, that a similar idea where it's half, and that each one could take from their half. But one thing is, this is what the Gemara's question is. Yes, one thing we see from the Bryce is, we said that each guy could come and take and put it into his bucket. This guy can put it into his basket and give his animals to eat. And we see we're not concerned that even though you're taking by hand, that you're going to come to diminish it. That contradicts the concept we said before in the halacha of the Mishnah. We said from Rav Huna that you cannot be eating because the animals, they could eat. They're not going to eat so much, but human beings, and he's going to go and take it and make it less than 10 vav, longer length of 10 numbers, and this is contradicted by the Brisa. So Amadei said, no, says the Gemara, no, there is a difference. Why? Is the case of this Brisa was talking about a house. The case where the straw is here is in the middle of a house. A house, even the ikatikra, since there's a roof, there's a ceiling. Kimifchis, when it gets less, minkril le milsa, so then it's recognizable. You could tell from the roof, from the ceiling, that the pile has been distanced from the ceiling. And if it's going to be less than 10 tefachim, you're going to realize, and you're going to stop, and you're going to separate. And even according to the interpretation that the problem was that of muktzah, is also no problem of muktzah only when it's above, when it's less than 10 tefachim. Because above 10 tefachim, you don't need it for mechitza, and therefore it doesn't function like a mechitza. So you'll see, however, that it's not hitting the ceiling. Hacha over here, but in the halacha of the Mishnah, where the pile of straw is in the courtyard and there's no ceiling, like Mikra Milsa, you're not going to recognize, you're not going to realize that it got less than the minimum height of 10 tefachim, and if it's longer length of 10 amas, you just made it into one open area. Therefore, that's in the Mishnah we're concerned, said Rav Huna. In the Brisa, we're not concerned because it's in the house. In the house, you'll realize that it got lower down. Like, whoa, like you're looking at the contrast from the ceiling to where it is. That's why they were not concerned that you're going to come through, even if you're doing it by hand.
What about the Gov Shultevin?
Yeah.
That's also in the house?
No, that's not a house. That's actually a halacha of tchumen. That's more telling you that. I mean, what are you saying by that case?
Well, you also see that the people from each city are allowed to take tevin from there.
Right, but see, that's not about diminishing the height. That's in a pit. That's just saying that each one from their side can go ahead and take, and we're not concerned they can take from the other person's side. So now I think we're going to explain some of the details of this brisa once we brought it in. Says the Gemara, Nismayit hatevin nasar tefachim. He said, if let's say the pile of straw that's in the middle house got less than 10 tefachim, we say, okay, Shnei Masum, now they're both forbidden. Again, you don't have the mechitza separating, we never join an Erev together. So the Gemara makes the dig, ha'asara, but if, let's say, it is 10 tefachim high, sharit's going to be permitted, like a wall, and that we're each like separate still. And it says the Gemara, it sounds like v'avagav the medallion tikkur too, but even though it's very far away from the ceiling, as long as it's within 10 tefachim, where it said it's in a house. So even though it doesn't hit the ceiling, as long as it's 10 tefachim high, it's going to be a mechitza. Says Mashmami, no, we can infer from this that mechitza is when you have walls that separate in a house, even if even if it doesn't reach the ceiling. Shema mechitza are called walls. And the significance of that is that refutes the opinion that was mentioned previously on Daf Ein Beis and Aleph. When we had these 5 groups living in one mansion, we said that if one opinion said that if the walls are 10 tefachim high, Beis Hillel says they don't need to make separate Eruvin. Because since it doesn't reach the ceiling, it doesn't separate the dwellers. Here it sounds like that no, that even if it's not going to hit the ceiling, as long as 10 tefachim high, that it will be considered as mechitzas. Abai says no, he rejects this. He says, Hacha over here is bebayi shleisha asa chasa mashvaskin. We're talking about where the ceiling is only 13, pretty low ceilings, 13 tefachim minus a little bit. And v'temen asar. And the pile of straw is 10 tefachim high. So that's what we said, even though, it's not hitting the ceiling, it's got diminished, but as long as 10 tefachim, it's going to be good, because with loved, it is considered like Yisla Tikka. So therefore, it's not a contradiction on that opinion. And actually, Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg says you can even say that the house is only a 10 tefachim ceiling. Now the difficulty obviously is, how could you then have Nismayit HaTeben and still be that it's a mechitz of 10 tefachim if the ceiling itself was only a height of 10 tefachim? So now the Gemara continues on the base. He says because actually with Teven Sheva Mashu, actually the pile of straw is only 7 and a little bit more of tefachim. Which the Gemara is going to quickly jump in and ask, what do you mean? You said Nismayit Ma'asara, that we got less than 10. How could it be 7 and a little bit? But the point is the Chalpach is Mishleisha, since it's less than 3 tefachim, the pile of the straw from the top, Kalabadami, it's like loved, and therefore it's like closed, and therefore it's like a mechitza 10 tefachim. Which the Gemara says, wait a second. Bishlam and Labai, understand according to Bai Heindik Tali Masa, that's why it says that it got less than 10 tefachim, that it was at least 10 tefachim, because the ceiling was only 13 minus a little bit, and therefore it could have been within 3 tefachim. What do you mean got less than 10? It would only start off being 7 and a little bit. So the Gemara mitayres us off from the halacha of 10. Because when you have 7 and a little bit, with loved, halachically we give it as a mechitza, as a asara. That's the same, but if we got nismayit ma'asara, then it's going to be invalid. But again, it's not a raya like the madama of that it doesn't have to reach the ceiling. Could be it has to, and as long as you have loved, it's like as if it hits the ceiling. Another one of the halachas we said in the brisa was that if the haystack becomes less than 10 tefachim high, we said that shnei masur. We said that now both of them are going to be forbidden because now they make you problematic one on the other, because now you're on a mechitza separating and you didn't join the one joint Erev. And you couldn't even because you had a mechitza separating the two of you. But one thing says the Gemara, Shemamina, we can infer from the price is that the urine haboin b'Shabbos, if you have dwellers that come on Shabbos, like in this case, yesterday there were no dwellers that had dominance from the pile of the straw on the other side. Now that the pile of straw got diminished, now you have dwellers in the other half. So like almost they came on Shabbos, these new dwellers, that you see Asur and it does make it problematic. And then we don't say that, Shabbos, no, once it was permitted, it remains permitted. Which that's a machlekes we have in the first part of Yud Zayin and Aleph regarding when you have people in the caravan that are traveling and people come on Shabbos, what's the halacha? Seemingly you see from here that if people came on Shabbos, because that's essentially what happens, the people on the other side are, so to speak, coming on Shabbos, when you get diminished, you see that it's going to make it problematic. So the Gemara, no, Dilma the imid may atmo. Maybe the case in the Mishnah or the Brisa when it's saying Shnei Masur means to say that they got diminished from yesterday, from before Shabbos. That's what we can say Shnei Masur again, unless they make an Erev together. But maybe if they come on Shabbos, maybe it would not be a problem because we say Shabbos kibbutz hutra. Once it was permitted, remains permitted, even if let's say the mechitza or the diurim are problematic starting sometime on Shabbos. So we said in the Brisa, Saketsu de Waisa. We said, so how do you fix this? Because the halacha is now that it got less than 10 tefachim, they're joined together and they didn't make an Erev together, so what could you do? So that's a device of Noila's base. What you do is one guy locks his door, and he gives up his rights in the middle courtyard, and now at least the other guy could go ahead and carry because he has no rights anymore over there. So the Gemara says Tarti has to do both? Why does he have to lock his house and give up his rights? Either one should be enough. So the Gemara says in the first answer, Hachikama, this is what it's saying. Or he locks his house, where by locking his house he's revealing his intention that he's removing himself from here, and that is his bittul. Or he doesn't lock his door, but he's saying, I'm giving up my rights. either one of them is going to be sufficient to allow the other guy to now to carry the straw from there, because it's only a singular entry. No one else is coming in over there. Or be based or if you want, says you actually could say Lilam Tarti. The truth is that, regarding the permissibility of the neighbor, doing one of the two are going to be sufficient. But for himself, the guy who is giving up his rights, he has to do what's called a harchaka, so that he doesn't come to, by mistake, come to carry over there. And that's why he has to do two. And that is because keeping the dashbe, once you're used to doing something, us a little too late. He might come to carry over there. And as Rashi points out, that the truth is that this Tana would hold anyone who's mevatel his rights has to, besides being mevatel rights, you have to lock the door also. Because that's what people have by the light switches on Shabbos. You have these light covers, or even to turn on the light on Shabbos. You're just so used to doing it, you might come to do it. This guy, you're right. By doing one of the two is sufficient. But he's so used to going there to get the straw from that middle house, he might go on Shabbos and he's not allowed to. So therefore, for himself, he's got to lock the door so that he doesn't come to go to the place where he's mevatel his rights. Moreover, we said the words that who usher, we said that, okay, so now he gave up his rights, he's forbidden, but his friend's permitted. So obviously, I mean, that is the idea. What are you saying this halacha for? It says, it's necessary to hadr idach. We're saying that even if the other guy who received the rights originally, and then he goes, now he goes and he gives up his rights to the middle house to the guy who originally was mavatal to him after he took care of his needs, he got his straw that he needed. That even then the original guy is not going to be able to carry over there. But what's coming to tell us is the aim of we had this machlekes earlier in this masefta, and from this brayso we see the halacha that it's going to remain like that. Who asa b'chavei mutter is telling you that even if he wants to try to give it back, it's not going to work. You can't do bittul and then go give the bittul back. That's what we're learning from the halacha of the brayso. And the brayso said, finally, so too you say, so too we're getting a pit of straw that's between two different boundaries of Shabbos. You have this huge pile of straw, and one town could get to half of it, the other town gets to the other half of it, that each one could use from their side. So it's obviously, what's the difference of tchumen from the courtyards? Either one is rabbinic law, and we let you use your side, as we said. It says, according to Rabbi Kiva, which Masechta Seita, Daf Yomi Manaf, he's quoted and he says Tchumen Deirais. He says the law of Tchumen, of how far you can go on Shabbos to walk, is biblical. So Mamtem, what would you say? Then we should be concerned that you might come to switch. You might come to take from the Tchum that's not yours and be Oivan Deirais because you might take too far from which is on the other side. They're telling you we're not concerned for that you could have take from your side of the Tchum, and we're not concerned for that problem. Continue halacha of the next Mishnah, continue on this theme of Shituf and Mavois or Ruba Chatzeris, joining two different ears together. So really, Shituf and Mavois, you could go ahead and the simple way is to collect from everybody and get a little bit and everyone joins together. And now we're all like living in that courtyard. But the Mishnah says, how could you do Shituf and Mavois in the easiest, simplest, most convenient type of a way? It says the Mishnah like this. What a person, one of the people could do, one of these people that are initiators, that take responsibility for the community, he takes his own barrel if he wants to. He says like this. I want this barrel to be for all the people in the whole neighborhood, in the whole mali, and he could give their rights to them in his barrel, because it has to be like everyone joined in. So he's giving them rights to it. He's giving them zikui in his stuff, either through his adult sons and daughters. And he says to his sons and daughters, he says, I want you to accept this barrel and merit for all the people in the Mavi in this barrel, or through his male or female Jewish servants, or through his wife. But he cannot do this. He cannot give the rights, not through his small sons and daughters, his minor children, not through his male or female non-Jewish slaves. And the reason for that is their hands are like his hand. It's not being mazakat, it's like taking from your right hand to your left hand, and that's not going to be mazakat. Mazakat is giving it to someone who's going to merit for them, so it's not going to work through the minors or through the non-Jewish slaves. Now, explaining how this works, I'm Rabbi Huda. He says, Chavish shel shituf mavayis, one of the qualifications of doing the zikui, of the barrel of shituf mavayis, tzarich lagbia min karka, you have to go ahead and lift it up from the ground when you're being mazakat to them, tafach, a hand's breadth. Because as long as it's still in his domain, it's not a zikr. As the Brisa teaches in the Tosefta, that if it's their food, you don't have to be mezakeh to them. If it's his own, so then the shliach has to merit it for them. He has to pick it up from the ground. And he says, I merited for them, and then they can put it down. You do this with the roof. You come from the chumetz, he picks up the thing. You have to pick it up from the ground, a tafach, so that it's out of that owner's domain, and he merited for them. Now, Amar Rav, he says, Hani Tremili, he says the following two halachas. Sabi the Pumbedisa, I mean the elders of Pumbedisa, which refers to Rabbi Yehuda and his yeshiva, as the Gemara says in the end of the first parak in Sanhedrin, he's the elders of Pumbedisa. He said the following two halachas. Chadaha, one is the halacha that we just said, which is that you have to lift it up from the ground, a tafach, like we said, that was Rabbi Yehuda, he's the Sabi the Pumbedisa. And Idach, a second halacha that he said was unrelated halacha, Hamakadosh, if someone makes kiddush, im tom aloy lugma, if he drank a cheekful, siyata, then he fulfilled his obligation. But if he didn't drink a cheekful, then he has not fulfilled his obligation. Actually, Amar of Chaviv, he adds on, Hanami Sabbath the Pumbedisa Amar. A third halacha, the elders of Pumbedisa, Rabbi Yehuda said, because the Amar Rabbi Yehuda Mishmul, that's who the elders of Pumbedisa are. He says, Eisen Medura, you can make a large fire, l'chaya, for a woman that gave birth, b'Shabbos on Shabbos, because it's dangerous for her if she gets too cold. Now, Savmina, they thought to say from this that l'chaya, only a woman who gave birth, postnatal, only for her you can make a fire, but for a regular sick person you cannot. And so too they thought to say, in the winter months when it gets very cold, then there's danger for her health. But in the summer months, then you cannot. However, we learned that Amar Chi Bar Abba and Amar Shmuel, that this same teacher was saying the name of Shmuel, Hikas down the standard. If a person did bloodletting, which was a common Talmudic procedure, and he gets cold, meaning he's getting sick, you can make a fire for him on Shabbos. Even in the midst of the summer months, even in the hottest days, you could do that. So you see that it's permitted not only for a woman to give birth, even for any sick person, and not only in the winter months, but even in the summer months. And Omar Amemer, he says, he says a fourth halacha that Rabbi Yehuda, the elders of Pumbedisa, said. That we learned like this. What's considered in general that we could presume that it is an Asherah, which is an Avodah Zarah tree, even though we don't see that they're worshipping it, but we could presume that it's an Asherah tree. So we have Machlekes. Amar Rav, he says, if the priests are protecting that tree, and there's a continued time pay off, they ain't timing repairs, and they're not eating from its fruits, that is, if they didn't worship it, they would not eat the fruits. Obviously, from the fact that they're protecting it, not eating from it, obviously this is not Avodah Zarah tree. However, Shmuel, he says, no, it's going to Amr. It's like when it's as if they say, "Hani Tami, these dates from this tree, l'shicha de beitzafi should be for the beer that they use for this avodah zara that's in that country. The shasali b'yamidim that they drink it on their holiday. Obviously, that is their avodah zara tree, and that they use the fruits for the services of their deity of their avodah zara." And the elders of Pumbedisa told me, and this is the fourth halacha that Rabbi Yehuda, the Pumbedisa, is saying, halacha Shmuel. That's the fourth halacha that we can identify in the Asherah tree by the fact that the attendance, not by the fact that they attend actually because the fourth halacha was saying that it's like Shmuel, who says that they want to use the dates for the beer that they drink on their holiday. That's an Asherah tree. Some of these we discussed in today's Daf, in Eruvin Daf Ayin Tes, was the halacha of the Mishnah. We said that if the ditch that's between the two courtyards that separates them, but if it's filled up with earth, that then you could only make one eruv together. It's considered connected, which sounds like that stam is considered batel. It doesn't say you mevatl it. If you just have it filled up with earth, it's going to be considered connected. The problem is there was a Mishnah Masechtas Alas that says if you have a house that's filled up with pebbles and earth, all the same thing. It's specifically if you mevatl it, then it's like sasim. That seems to contradict the halach of our Mishnah that said that even if you just put it in, it's going to be batel. So they might have three approaches. Either the Tana of our Mishnah Masechtas Eruvin is like Rabbi Yossi, who brought a brisa that he says that even stam offer is going to be batel. As we said, teven ve'ein also lefanoisai. When you have straw that you don't plan on moving away, it's like stam offer, it's going to be batel. That's what we see like our Mishnah. Yeah, and the Mishnah Masechtas also a different Tana. Or no. Leave the Isser Shabbos, which is what our Masechta is talking about in our Mishnah, that even a person would be mavatal. Because it's Shabbos, you can't move it. So you have the earth there for Shabbos, it's batal and it's going to connect. In contrast, the Mishnah Masechta Alas is running laws of Tumah. Laws of Tumah, I wouldn't necessarily be mavatal earth over there. Or a third approach was, our Mishnah is talking about a ditch. A ditch is meant to stuff up with earth. So if you put in earth, of course it makes sense, we could presume it's going to be batal. Whereas over there, it's talking about a house. You don't presume that a person is going to leave the earth there and stuff up a house. Therefore, it's only if it's mevatlet, and therefore those are three answers to that question. Then we continued to explain the halach of the Mishnah. We said that if you put a board that's 4 tefachim wide, that's between these two different sides of the courtyard that are separated with the ditch, that's going to now be like a Pesach, and if they wanted, they can make an Erev one together or two separately. So we said that that's if you're putting the board on the width of the ditch. That's when it has to be 4 tefachim wide. But if you put it along the length of the ditch, then even if the width of the board is even a minute amount, as long as you're now minimizing the width of the, because you're putting it along the length, you're minimizing the width of the ditch. Now it's less than 4 tefachim, so the board itself doesn't have to be 4 tefachim wide. That could even be a narrow board, it's still making less than 4 tefachim. Also, we continue with the halacha of the Mishnah. We said when you have two porches, when you have a zu keneged zu, which the inference is that if it's shaloi keneged zu, then no, it's not going to be effective. It has to be exactly that the two porches are one right opposite the other one. And then that's where a board's going to work. Where we said, when is it that if it's, let's say, one sticking out a little bit more, that then it's not going to be working? If, let's say, it sticks out a little bit more, it's not going to be effective. It's only if you have between the two of them a space of 3 tefachim. But if you have less than 3 tefachim, we consider it as a gezuz terakuma. It's considered like a bent porch. It's going to be considered all as one if it's less than 3 tefachim. If it's less than 3 tefachim, then it's going to be considered as one, even if it's zeh shaloi keneged zeh. Then we went to the next mission. We said that if you have a pile of straw between two different courtyards that's 10 tefachim high, so it's like a mechitza, so you can only make 2 separate Eruvin, you can't be joined together. Additionally, we said that each one could have his animals eat from either side of the pile of straw. We said that if the pile of straw becomes less than 10 tefachim, then you could only join together as one. And the Gemara explained, although we said that they could have their animals eat from it, that's only if he doesn't put it with his hands into the bucket for his animal to eat from. And the reason for that is because in that case of the Mishnah, it's in a chatzah, where it's not recognizable if it's going to become less than 10 tefachim. Although we brought a price that says that, what do you mean? You could take with your hands and take from the pile of straw from the middle house. That's because that's in a house that has a ceiling. So when it gets less than that, it's recognizable. In contrast to the halacha of our Mishnah, which is a chatzah, you're not going to realize that you're going to make it less than 10 tefachim along a length of 10 amas, and then you're going to be carrying in an area that's connected, and you didn't make an erev together. Additionally, this that we said that when the straw gets less than 10 tefachim, you have to make one erev together. So that we said that it's not a raya from over there that but if it's 10 tefachim, it's going to be permitted even though it doesn't reach to the ceiling. Because either we said, no, we're talking about that the ceiling is 13 minus a little bit, and the pile of straw is 10 tefachim, that with love, that's considered as it's actually hitting the ceiling. Or again, the house could even be 10 tefachim, and the pile of straw could be 7 and a little bit. And I had said that it's nismait nasar, it was never 10 in the beginning. No, it means mitaris asar, but again, it's considered connected through the laws of love. Additionally, we said that the truth is, not only can you not go ahead and take it by hand from the pile, you can't even put your animal on top of it. Even that would be forbidden. This that we're saying is only that you're standing in the way of it. And the only place it has to go, it's going to go over there. That's we're not concerned. But to actually place your animal on top of a muktzah thing, like the pile of straw, actually would be problematic because we're concerned you might come to take it by hand. Then we said that in the Brisa it says that if the pile of straw got less than 10 tefachim, they're both going to be forbidden because now they're in a joint area. There was never an erev. So the truth is, you could say that it was from before Shabbos, and maybe the truth is, if it happened on Shabbos, it wouldn't be a problem because, like, notation the diurin does not make it problematic. We say Shabbos, keep it hutra, it actually does remain hutra, and it's not a riot because it could be the Nismai Tevin was, but from before Shabbos. Additionally, he said that. So what do? Now it's less than 10 tefachim, and they're joined together, and they don't have an erev. Now no one can take from the straw of the middle house. They need it for the animals on Shabbos. So we said, okay, no problem. One guy locks his house, and he's mavatlas rishos. Now the other one could use it. So the Gemara actually says, no, you don't need both. It's either one that we're saying, or no, you need both for yourself. Because since you're so used to taking from there, if you don't lock the door besides doing the Bishop Rishus, you might come to take, and therefore, but you're right, for the other person, it's enough, one of the two. And additionally, the Brisa said that even by Tchumen, we're also not concerned what's the Chiddush, what's the difference between Chatzeres, because even like Rabbi Kiva, the whole Tchumen is Deraisa, we're not concerned you might come to take from the other half of the pile of the straw. Then we went to the next mission. We said that how do you do shitufim avos in the simplest way? You take a barrel and you mazaka to all the people in the mavli, but it cannot be through his small children or his non-Jewish slaves, because again, yadin kiyada, it's like taking from your right hand to your left hand. The Sabbath Medisa qualified in this halacha that you have to lift up a tefah from the ground, and then the Gemara brought 3 other halachas that the elders of Medisa, which that is Rabbi Yehuda, that he said additionally the halacha when you make kiddush you have to drink a cheekful. That is, you can make a fire for a woman that gave birth, and it could even be for a sick person, and even in the summer months. Also, how do we know what's considered a regular Asherah tree? He said the halacha is like Shmuel, which is like, for example, where they say that we want these dates for the beer that they drink for the holiday of their Avodah Zarah. In contrast to Rav, who he said that if you have the priests that are protecting it and they're not eating from the fruits, he said then you know it's a Asherah tree. And that is Sabbath the B'Madisa. We're saying the halacha is like Shmuel, who says the halacha is that if they're using the fruits for what they drink on their holiday, that's how you know that that's Tam Asherah. Thank you to any time for hosting us.